If you're sensitive to noise and have a hard time sleeping or staying asleep because of loud neighbors, or maybe your partner snores, this video might be for you. Now, a little bit of context. I'm very sensitive to sound and I'm a very light sleeper, so the slightest sounds wake me up. My bedroom happens to be overlooking a street. Said street is lined up with trees, which is awesome to have, except come fall, the tree leaves fall down and the city sends out 2 guys with leaf blowers to sweep the sidewalks, which is also great. No one wants to be walking and potentially slipping on tree leaves, except they do that at 6:30 in the morning, every single day, weekday, weekend. Now, if you have not heard what a leaf blower sounds like, consider yourself very lucky. It's one of the most annoying sounds you can hear, and let alone be woken up to at 6:30 in the morning. Now, I do have double pane windows, which are great. They isolate sound impeccably well. I barely hear any of the city noises. But they're not a match for leaf blowers, which happen to have very low frequency sound waves that travel long distances, and they also have the ability to penetrate walls and windows. That's by proving quite difficult to cancel out. So I set out on finding a way to be able to sleep essentially, or stay asleep, and I ended up trying a bunch of different earplugs, earmuffs, and other solutions, and I figured I'll share my experience, my findings with you. In case you're in a similar boat, this might be helpful. So my first thought was, I don't want to buy single-use earplugs. I'm going to try to find something that's either reusable or can be used a couple of times rather than just use and throw out. So I tried a couple of earplugs. I tried the Happy Ears and I tried the Loop earplugs, which were really well rated. Unfortunately, they did not work for me. Now, a quick disclaimer here, I do have a weird left ear. My ear canal is narrower than the other ear, which makes earplugs and even earbuds difficult to stay put in my left ear. So what works or does not work for me might be a different case for you. Ears come in different shapes, sizes, and forms. My 2 ears are different, so I'm sharing my experiences with my ears, but do keep in mind it might be different for you guys. So the Loop and the Happy Ears did not stay put in my ears, and also they did not provide sufficient noise isolation. The only reusable ones that I actually liked are these by Soupseat. Not sure how to pronounce those. And these kind of look like the old Bose earbuds with the stay here tips. They have kind of a wing which helps them stay in place. And these actually stayed in place in my ear. Now, they do not offer a ton of noise isolation, so they don't block out a lot of noise, but they're enough to block out some distant noises. Definitely not those of a leaf blower. But I did find myself actually using them in the months where there's no leaf blowers, just to block out the sound of neighbors. And the fact that they are reusable, you can wash them and use them again, was a major plus for these. I also tried soft silicone, and the idea behind soft silicone is that you can mold it whichever way you want, and it will take the shape of your ear. I wasn't a big fan of these, and maybe I did not apply them right, but I did not feel that they blocked out sound that well. So I tried something else, noise masking earbuds. I actually tried and reviewed the Soundcore Sleep A10s, which if you haven't seen, you can click over here to check that review out. They were quite comfortable. And these work on a different principle. So they don't cancel out sounds, they mask it, so you can hear soothing sounds of waterfalls and whatnot to try to mask out the sounds. That did not work out for me. I'm not a big fan of keeping sounds playing in my ear, but also the battery life on those was terrible, so they did not last through the night. So that also did not work. So I was left with a solution of trying traditional foam earplugs like this. And the idea is they're made of foam. You compress them by rolling them, and then you put them in your ear, keep your finger holding them in place for a couple of seconds, and then they will expand in your ear canal. That's by providing a good seal and blocking out sounds. Now, I tried a bunch of those. I'm going to share my experiences, but again, what works or doesn't work for me doesn't particularly mean it's going to be the same for you. Now, before I walk you through the earplugs that I tried, a very quick and brief note on the science behind them. If you buy earplugs from any reputable company, you're going to find a rating on them. That's usually either an SNR rating or an NRR. In North America, NRR is used. In Europe, SNR is used. It's basically a decibel rating, and essentially what it tells you is how much sound they're able to attenuate. SNR and NRR are calculated differently, so the figures are not going to match, but without going into too much technical details, The higher the number, whether it's SNR or NRR, the better these earplugs are at attenuating sounds. Now, just a quick note here, the figure you're going to see on the box is normally the average SNR or NRR rating. However, earplugs do not perform equally across all different frequencies. And again, if you're getting these from a reputable company, you're going to find a table, kind of like this one over here, if you can see that. And this will show you the attenuation in decibels across the different frequencies. With some, it could be on the box. With others, you might need to go to the website, to the product page, and get the technical data sheet to be able to see that. Now, where this is important, if you understand what noises you're trying to cancel, in what frequency range these noises are in, you'd be better able to make a decision on which earplugs offer better protection. For example, leaf blowers tend to have lower frequency sounds, so in theory, I need to look at earplugs that perform well or have a good SNR or NRR rating on the lower frequencies. So what I did, the bunch of earplugs that I got, I went ahead and found the SNR ratings for all of them, and I plotted them on a graph. And I used the SNR, not NRR, because I could not find an NRR rating for all of them, but I was able to find an SNR. Again, as long as you're comparing apples to apples, and in this case, I'm comparing SNR ratings across the line, it's fine. What you need to know, the higher the rating, the better the noise isolation. But we'll get to that in just a second. Before we do that, I'm going to walk you through my experience with each of the earplugs that I tried out. Starting off with the Mack Ultra Soft earplugs. Now, these are soft, as the name says, but in my case, they were too soft. And because my left ear, the ear canal is narrow, these were soft to the point where when I rolled them and tried to insert them in, they would just bend, and there was no way for me to actually get them into my ear canal because they were that soft. So this might be a good thing for you, how soft they are, but in my case, I couldn't get them in my left ear, so off the bat, these did not work. Next up, I got a bunch of earplugs from Leight. I got the Mack Light over here and the Mack earplugs. These I actually really liked. Now, what I specifically really liked about these earplugs is that they have kind of a T-shaped, as you can see. So they have a wider base, and where this comes in handy is it makes it easier for you to pull them out as the base is wider. Also, it gives you a bit more confidence when you're inserting them in your ear canal because you know you're not going to go too far and you're always going to be able to pull them out. They're relatively comfortable to wear. The Mack Light, which is the green one over here, is smaller than the Mack, so if you have smaller ears or a smaller ear canal, this would be the better one for you, and they generally block out sound quite well. And they stayed put in my ear all throughout the night. Next up are the 1100 earplugs from 3M, and these are also very well rated. I found they're a bit less soft than the Leight, but I felt they give a better seal in your ear and slightly block out more noise. They're slightly less comfortable, however, and I really do miss that wider base, the T-shape on the Leight, because as I was using those, I would always fear going in too far in my ear canal and not being able to remove them in the morning. Now, it probably was all in my head, but the T-shape of the Leight did give me more peace of mind that I could always pull them out and that I won't go in too deep. I did not get that feeling with those, where I always feared I might be going too deep, which would prove difficult to remove in the morning. But they also stayed put in my ear all throughout the night, and I was also generally very happy with those. Next up, I tried the Moldex 7700 Pura Fit. These have an SNR rating of 36 decibels, and they're quite soft and quite comfortable, and generally stayed in my ear with a few exceptions where I'd wake up with one of them out of my ear, but generally was also happy with how they performed. Lastly, I want to talk about the Queeze, I'm not sure how to pronounce these. These were very soft, however, would not stay put in my ear. No matter what I tried, I would wake up with them out of my ears. While they're quite soft and comfortable, they did not work for my ears. Now, all of the earplugs that I used, none of them were able to block out the sound of the leaf blowers, and I would still wake up every single morning at 6 a.m. to that sound. So I figured, what can I try next? Then I went for earmuffs, and the idea was, let's try to get double protection. So I would use the earplugs and then the earmuffs on top. So I went for the 3M Peltor, the X4 earmuffs, which are low profile earmuffs that are quite well rated, and to my surprise, they worked. I put earplugs in the earmuffs on top, And in the morning, I did not hear the sound of the leaf blowers. But I did not sleep either, because as you can imagine, earmuffs are not comfortable to sleep in, especially if you are a side sleeper. So great, I solved one problem, but created another one. So then I set out to see if I can find a solution to be able to sleep with earmuffs. And I thought to myself, maybe I can modify a pillow and just create 2 big holes for the earmuffs. But what do you know? It turns out it actually exists. This is something that I found online, and it's exactly for that use, so that you can sleep with earmuffs. And as you can see, there are 2 big holes on the side for you to be able to sleep with earmuffs. And it actually works. Now, it does take time to get used to it and to get used to sleeping with the earmuffs. In the first couple of nights, they did hurt my ears, but eventually I did get used to sleeping with them and to sleeping on this thing. And it actually works. And for the first time in a very long time, I would not wake up at 6 a.m. at the sound of leaf blowers. But then I figured, what if the earmuffs alone could work? So I tried those without the earplugs, and that did not work. I would still wake up to the sound of the leaf blowers. But then I figured, let me try one more thing. I got the 3M X5 earmuffs, which are way larger than the X4s, but they also offer better SNR ratings. And this time around, it actually worked. With no earplugs, only the X5s, I would not hear the sound of the leaf blowers. I've been using them for 4 weeks now, and I no longer hear that annoying sound at 6 a.m. They actually work, and I gotten used to wearing them to bed and also sleeping on this weird pillow. And finally, I can sleep. So I mentioned earlier the science behind the earplugs and the SNR ratings and the frequency tables. So let me show you the graph that I plotted with all of these ratings across the different earbuds. In case you're looking to block out a specific sound or specific frequencies, the graph could come in handy in identifying which is the better product for your use case. So this is what they look like plotted on a graph, and instantly when you look at the graph, you can see that some, like the 3M 1100, perform really the worst with lower frequencies, say below 250 Hertz, but then with higher frequencies, as of 1000 Hertz, they become the best performers. On the other hand, something like the Leight Macks, they're really the best performers in lower frequencies below 250 Hertz, but across the board, they still perform quite well. Even at 4000 and 8000 Hertz, they're amongst the best performers. So I would say the Leight Macks, at least on paper, are the best performers across all the different frequency ranges. The Leight Macks Light are a close second at frequencies below 500, but then they take a big dip at higher frequencies. And then the Moldex Pura Fit is somewhere in between. So I'm gonna leave this on the screen for a bit so you can take a look at whatever relevant frequency ranges interest you and try to see which of these earplugs might be the best for your use case. Now, the interesting thing is when we add to the mix the earmuffs, the X5 and the X4, and you instantly see, on paper at least, they are way worse in lower frequencies. Look at that gap over here. They're way worse at lower frequencies, and even at higher frequencies, they're nowhere near the top performers over here. That's, of course, on paper. In reality, the case was different. You do see that the X5 is significantly better than the X4 almost across all frequencies, but do keep in mind that it is way larger. So given the profile of the X4, the very slim profile, I think it's a very worthy contender, unless you don't mind the extra excess bulk of the X5, in which case, well, go for the X5 if you don't mind it, because it is way better performer. So yes, one thing did not make sense, at least on paper. The earmuffs are rated way lower than any of the other earplugs at the lower frequencies, which is essentially where the sound of leaf blower sits, yet they performed better. Now, I'm not a scientist, and if anyone is or is a specialist in the domain, please feel free to leave a comment in the comments section and just enlighten me. But my theory is, even if you have a perfect fit with earplugs, which is not always the case, but even with a perfect fit and you block your ear canals completely, sound can still get through, and this is by bone conduction. Your skull and your ears will conduct some of the sounds, especially low frequency sounds like those of the leaf blowers, and the sound will still reach your inner ear even if you block your ear canal. And I think this is why the earmuffs, despite having lower ratings than the earplugs, were able to block the sound of the leaf blowers, and that's because they're not only blocking your ear canal, but they're actually blocking your entire ear and all that area over here, thus by providing additional protection and less sounds that can be absorbed by your ear, by the cartilage, by the bones around over here. So that's my theory as to why these worked while everything else did not, despite having lower SNR ratings. That's it for now. I hope this was helpful in case you are in a similar boat and are struggling to sleep or stay asleep because of sounds that keep waking you up. If you liked the video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel, as this encourages me to continue producing content. And again, if you are a specialist in this domain, please feel free to leave a comment with any additional feedback or thoughts on the matter. That would be appreciated. Thanks again. Until next time, cheers.